how can we connect more deeply to our intuition? How can we expand into our universal wisdom and really use it for growth, use it for expansion, and use it ultimately to bring more hope into the world?
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacy Phillips. As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. Part of our manifestation process entails expanding past your limiting subconscious beliefs. Therefore, by tuning into this podcast with interviews from experts, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, scientists, and those with neural manifestation success stories, you're starting the process of expanding your subconscious in order to see to believe that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I am so excited for you guys to enjoy this episode. I actually get a lot of questions about astrology from you in DMs asking where to find your birth charts and how to read it and how to know more about it and really work with our astrology in tandem with our manifestation process, especially when it comes to understanding how to use astrology for our authenticity or how to navigate workshops or timing of when to unblock certain aspects and what that looks like with manifestation. So I'm always so curious to astrology and how I can utilize some of those tools alongside our work. So today we have Jill Wintersteen of Spirit Daughter, which you guys I'm sure are very familiar. If you are following this podcast, you've definitely heard of her. Jill has a neuroscience background. She even has her doctoral degree. She had so much success in the research and science field, but her true passion really lied with more deeper consciousness levels and eventually became the astrologer you know today and the founder of Spirit Daughter. Spirit Daughter has really even grown so much in the time that I have been a fan of her work, from workbooks that you can take home every single month and journal and work through exercises with astrology, to now even launching some introductory courses on astrology, which we will link in the show notes for you guys. And we've had Jill on before. It is one of our most popular episodes. That first episode really breaks down the highs and lows of each astrology sign. So if you want to learn the basics, the ins and outs of astrology, or just a quick refresher, you can listen to that episode. And today, Jill is taking that even deeper and touching on what our north and south nodes mean. So be sure to pull up your charts. While you tune in, you're really going to get such an in-depth understanding. And Lacy asks such incredible questions of how to read your chart to understand your unique patterning with manifestation. So I would check out a website like Cafe Astrology or Astro Cafe Astrology, even the CoStar Astrology website. I believe you can pull up your birth chart there. But once you have your birth chart, it really gives you a sense of where to find some of the things that they're talking about in this episode. So if you really want to know the basics, I would go back and listen to Jill's first episode with us. We'll have it linked. And then this is going to tap in even further. And they talk a lot about the energetics of this year, what's to come this summer, what are the alignments, and probably not a shocker to you guys because you're all on this journey with us. But one of the major themes for this year is healing. So I know you're going to get a lot out of it. I'm so curious to hear how you guys resonate with your north and south nodes. So be sure to check that out on the website, tune into the episode, and dive in. I know you guys are going to love this one, and it's definitely one that I'm going to keep coming back to for reference and to help tap into my authenticity even deeper. So enjoy.
And now a word from our partners. So as you heard in a few episodes back, I finally am getting back into my self-care. And one piece of that has been so tremendous for me every single day is walking on the beach. And why I've been doing that, there's a multitude of reasons, but 3 of the biggest are to sun gaze, to get my dose of vitamin D, heliotherapy every day. And super important to me, especially living in Los Angeles, is to remove the positive ions through earthing. It's actually a practice I'm really aware of in my daily life all around. You've been hearing about that for years, how I biohack in certain ways. And one thing that I really appreciate, as you continue to hear us talking about and partnering with Blue Blocks, they have a couple of products that have really supported this process for me that are extremely accessible, practical, incredible. One of which that I really want to highlight is their new EMF harmonizing sticker. It's this incredible little sticker that harmonizes any of your devices, may it be your phone, your computer, your desktop, washing machine. It's endless how much EMF and radiation we're exposed to in our everyday lives. And it's really rad because you can even see in one of their unboxing videos that we have linked below, they actually show in real time when the sticker is on a device that it's emitting an incredibly high rate of negative ions, which neutralizes the harmful positive ions emitted that really affect us on a huge cellular level by creating stress to our cells, mitochondria imbalance that lead to a plethora of issues that I'm not even going to mention. So that's been tremendous because I'm very, very, very sensitive to EMF and radiation as a sentient being, to the point where even when we were remodeling the house, I even put EMF blocking primer on our walls to our bedroom. Most nights, I take an extremely deep bath with Epsom salt, magnesium flakes, and baking powder. Again, just really, really, really getting those positive ions out. So I'm so appreciative of this new product. It's literally $14.95 US dollars. They're tiny, they're chic, and they're literally a sticker that you just slap on any of those devices that I talked about. You can hide them behind your desktop, put it on the back of your cell phone case, put it on the top of your laptop. I'm just naming off the places that I currently have it. So if you want to try anything from Blue Blocks, at checkout, use the code all caps magnetic, MAGNETIC, to receive 15% off. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I do. So this conversation surrounding beekeepers natural is a little overdue in the sense, did anybody get hit as hard as our household with colds this last season? I don't know if it's because so many of us haven't, we've been isolated from one another and quarantined from one another, or because I have a new baby and it's their new immune system. I have no idea, but it was the roughest cold season of our lives in the sense that there would not be a time that one of us in the house would catch a cold and then it would knock everybody else out like dominoes, and all the way down to our co-care person who I think was sick once a month for 5 months straight. And when you have a business and a baby, it means everything just stops. And it was totally insane. And the only things that helped us recover quickly or helped preventative on the 2 times I personally didn't get sick when Teddy or somebody else in the house did was this regime. I'm going to tell it to you. So the bee immune throat spray was just a daily. The moment we all started getting sick all the time, I literally kept it out on the counter and was like, everybody, please use this every single day to be preventative. I travel with it now. It's in my overnight case. It's in my purse. I'm always mindful because I don't want a full week to stop where I get nothing done anymore. So that's been huge and preventative for myself. Then once we would get knocked down, and the reason I would personally get knocked down, in my personal opinion, was I wasn't doing my beach walk. So it means I wasn't getting heliotherapy or enough natural vitamin D, and I wasn't sleeping because I have a little baby. So once I would get knocked down with something on the 2 accounts where I stayed above it with the bee immune spray, then this is what we would work in. The Bee Soothe lozenges. I personally really went with the ginger and lemon if I was trying to keep my immunity high. Or once I really had the chest thing going on and the throat thing going on, I would move into the peppermint eucalyptus. So what I love about that is you're getting the propolis, you're getting the zinc, which is so important. Plus why I think I was getting sick was not having enough vitamin D. It has the vitamin D support in it. So that trifecta is so effective at curving the immune system a lot quicker. And last but not least, I think everybody in here knows from my Instagram that at least twice a week, I will do the bee-powered superfood honey I talked about before as a face mask on my face because it has that propolis, royal jelly, and bee pollen, meaning that it's extremely hydrating. It has a huge cellular turnover, and it really helps even out the complexion. So this is how I interact with Beekeepers Natural. I appreciate that they have literally created a line of a modern day medicine cabinet for witches. That's what I'll say. It's for witches because it's truly the oldest medicine on the planet and it's of the highest quality. So today, Beekeepers Naturals is offering you an exclusive offer. You can either go to beekeepersnaturals.com/TBM or enter the code all caps TBM to get 25% off your first order. That's beekeepersnaturals.com/TBM or enter the code TBM. All right, on to the episode. Welcome back, Jill.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
We are all so excited for you. Congratulations on the second baby announcement.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I kept it to myself for a while, but I figured I might as well. It was time to tell people. So.
How are you feeling through it? I mean, like, I obviously just had mine. I know you obviously have a first baby. We're going to be trying again in December for the second. Are you freaking out?
Not, some days. Yeah. My son is 2.5, Bodhi, my toddler. So it's much harder being pregnant this time. Not because anything's really different. I mean, other than I'm 3 years older, but just having a toddler to also take care of on top of being pregnant is, it's hard. It's a challenge. And so I think it probably will also be more difficult with a newborn and a toddler versus just a newborn. But then I think we'll get to a point where I'm hoping, everything kind of falls into place and we all find our groove as a family.
Are you one of those people like I was who has the worst morning sickness?
No, I am.
Lucky.
Yeah, it was really like night sickness. It was interesting. Like as soon as the sun went down during my first trimester and the cold kind of set in, which wasn't very cold. I mean, I live in LA, so we're talking like 50 degrees here in December at night, but that would somehow trigger some sickness, some nausea. And so that was difficult, but it really inspired my husband to take over bath time. So.
Oh, fantastic. I had this doula tell me in postpartum that was really cute, because I'm only at 11 months now with my baby Teddy. And she was like, one day you are really going to want support when it comes to toddler nighttime routines because they drag on and on and on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's a meme out there. It's like, nobody has more to do than a toddler at bedtime.
That's so sweet though, but not always.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did the nighttime routine, bath, sort of story, bedtime until he was like 18 months, like every night. I didn't even think twice about it. After 18 months, I was like, okay, I think I want a break. I think I want one night off a week kind of thing. And now, I usually pop in for story time, but my husband sort of does bath time and all of those things, which is great. It was triggered by the first trimester sickness. And then now I'm just getting to the point where I'm getting bigger and it's like bath time's becoming slightly dangerous.
Yeah. Or very padded, one or the other.
Right.
Well, astrologically speaking, has it been interesting kind of intuiting into this next baby and just the three of you that exist now? What does that look like? Because as we talked on the last episode that you were on, I was really talking about like we were so intentional as much as we could be about choosing Teddy's, or like working with her to choose that she would be an Aries, which she did come, bam, Aries too. How does that all fit into the picture now that there will be another? What do you look at in the chart, et cetera?
Well, it's interesting because we tried for a while with this second one. So I felt like we didn't really have much of a choice in like choosing the sign. We actually thought we were going to end up with another Leo because we tried for like 8 months. We were like, well, maybe we can only have Leos kind of thing.
Which is like, whoa.
Yeah. And because we're Leos, my husband and I are Leos, and Bodhi's a Leo. So we're a family of Leos, but it looks like this one's going to be a Cancer. So
wow.
I think it'll actually be really good because we just have so much fire, and 4 Leos is in one house is on the brink of obnoxious.
Truly.
It's too much. So I'm happy to have like the splash of water come in. I also look at, I'm very into the lunar nodes. They're a passion of mine. I of course look at sun sign when I look at a chart, and moon sign and all of the other major planetary placements, but I really just love lunar nodes. And we each have a north and a south node, and they really govern our path, our life path, and what we're here to learn. We come in knowing our south node, and we're here to learn the energy of our north node. And Bodhi's north node is in Cancer. And so he's really here this lifetime to understand that energy and to embody it and to integrate it into his life. And so I think it's very appropriate that he's going to have a little sibling whose sun sign will most likely be Cancer. The baby's reading very big, so it's also likely it could be a Gemini. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, wow.
But it's interesting. I feel like I didn't have any control over the second one, which in that lack of control was like a lot of freedom, where I found that this pregnancy is extremely different than my first one, where I have little to no anxiety. My first pregnancy, I had a lot of anxiety while I was pregnant, and then also postpartum anxiety as well. And I was just worried about everything. I was one of those moms. I was like up in the middle of the night Googling things that nobody should ever Google at 3 a.m. So, which isn't very like me, and then this pregnancy, I have just like no anxiety. So it's really interesting because I just feel like I let go of control because it took us a while to get pregnant, and I just felt like it wasn't my decision of when it was going to happen. And just that alone just is like, okay, I'm just not in control of what's going to happen, and I'm just going to go with the flow and assume the best case scenario is going to unfold.
It's so beautiful because in essence, like just getting into the sun sign, if this is a Cancer, I mean, that's really the epitome, right? At the end of the day, just getting into flow on their time and the sensitivity that can come with that. It's really beautiful. I was somebody who we had tried for 5 years to get pregnant naturally, and it just never took. So I truly understand that journey of all of the feelings and all of the spectrum that comes with it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the surrender and then the beauty of like, whoa, this was the divinity that was supposed to happen. How could I have even thought that like I'm powerful enough, etc. So it's a really beautiful thing.
It's just all happening as it needs to happen.
Amazing. Well, we exhausted you last time. I can only imagine.
I don't have the energy for that this time.
Exactly. And so I love that you touched on the North and South Node, because that was one of Jessica's actually pressing questions. I believe North Node, it's such a big topic of conversation. And I know we breezed on it last time, but that's one that we wanted to go in depth in a little bit more on this conversation. People kind of telling them where they can find it in their chart. And then essentially you just touched a little bit on what it can determine. But if we're working with it, what are we looking out for when we are discovering in our chart? For instance, mine is very much a Taurus, and I feel really, really in connection with that Tauran energy. I have actually for the last 2 years.
Your North Node is in Taurus?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's actually the current placement right now. The North Node is currently in Taurus, and the South Node is in Scorpio. So just like we have planetary placements in our chart, we also have nodal placements as well. The lunar nodes they are where the moon's orbit and the sun's path intersect in our sky, and they are the place of eclipses. So wherever the current lunar nodes are placed, those are the eclipses that we're going to have throughout the year. So this year we will have our solar and lunar eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, because the lunar nodes are on that axis. And your south node is always opposite your north node. A lot of times when people are looking at their chart, a lot of charting apps will tell you your north node, but they won't tell you your south node. Your south node is always directly opposite to your north node. So that's just the first thing to know about finding those nodal placements. And then it's said that you come into this world already knowing your south node. It most likely was a predominant sign in your chart in a previous life, possibly even a sun sign. So for you, for instance, you may have been a Scorpio sun in a previous lifetime, one of them. And so you come in knowing that energy really well and really being attached to it in a lot of ways, so much that it can form comfort zones and can limit your growth. So it's really important to understand your south node and to really look at the lower vibrations of that sign. As we talked about previously, every sign has a higher energy and a lower energy, kind of a shadow side or extreme side, and then a higher vibration that we're always trying to get to. And so when working with the south node, you want to really look at the lower vibrations and ask how they may make up your shadows, how they may self-sabotage you, how they may interfere with your growth, or just form comfort zones, like attachments that you don't want to leave because they feel good and you know them. You know, this is familiar to you. And anytime something is familiar, even if it's not good for you, you know, we're humans. We become attached to it because we like the known. We don't like the unknown, as a general rule of thumb. But the north node really represents the energy that is foreign to you and is unknown, and really what you're here to learn and to embrace and to understand this lifetime. And very often in our younger years, like 20s, teens, we reject this energy. We may even reject people who embody this energy. Like for some reason, we just, we don't like them or we are annoyed by them, or we're triggered by them because they're illuminating something within us that, we want to expand upon ultimately, but we don't know how. And so it's really important to understand how you react to people around you who embody these energies, these north nodal energies. So for you, the people around you who are Tauruses or who have a strong Taurus placement in their chart. But then really kind of overcoming these fears of the unknown. And they may not be fears. It may just be, oh, that's uncomfortable. I don't understand that energy, or I don't know why this keeps coming up in my life, or I don't want to deal with this, or I'm not that type of person kind of thing. All of those things can come up around dealing with the north node. But really overcoming that and realizing that the path to your growth and evolution this lifetime is detaching from the lower vibrations of the south node. And the way to do that is to embrace your north node and understand it. The north node's always sort of the answer to the problem of the south node.
It's really fascinating because I've attracted many partners and friends and family members, Tauran men specifically, and this may just be my experience with them, that I find they are really reluctant to go inside and go deep to change programming and heal programming, to do self-work. Obviously, I find that they tend to find release and complacency through the pleasures of life. It's fascinating. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's just who they are. Like, they're here to ground us and show us that's just where it's at. But to the point of like not healing addiction, et cetera, is this a common theme? Or for instance, am I attracting these Taurans to mirror my north node and just kind of see where I have to adjust and where I have to change?
I would say the latter. Taurus is a simple energy. The simplest answer is the best with the Taurus, right? And there are lower sides, which you want to stay away from, which are stubbornness and clinging to comfort zones, just in general. But Taurus is really about the earth, and it's about connecting to the earth, and it's about enjoying the simple pleasures of life, like the sunset, walking with a loved one on the beach, or enjoying a hike, or just very simple things, very not complex. And that's the beauty of Taurus. And that's what we can really learn from Taurus, because we're all actually learning from Taurus right now, because the North Node is currently stationed in Taurus. And through these like simple acts, we can heal. And so Scorpio kind of comes in and says, oh, you have to do all this work. You have to go through this suffering of facing your shadows and digging deep and transforming and transforming and transforming and peeling back the layers and the layers. And, you know, I have a strong Scorpio placement in my chart, so I understand that very much. So that whole emphasis on the psychological, and it's not just what it is on the surface, and we have to go deeper and keep going deeper. And Taurus kind of steps in and goes, nope, it's just that simple. Like, just let it go. Just go watch the sunset and have fun. Or just connect with your body and your breath and let that be healing. Let these small, simple moments heal you without having to do this like great big journey of work. And, you know, the lower side of Scorpio in many ways is this constant need to transform, to the point where you end up re-traumatizing yourself because you're going through everything over and over and over again. And, you know, Scorpio is that epitome of, you know, the phoenix flying out of the ashes of the fires. And that is a great aspect of Scorpio. But sometimes the phoenix just needs to fly and doesn't need to burn everything down again. So the lower vibrational loop of Scorpio is like resetting the fire over and over again, so that one can transform over and over again and be the phoenix flying out of the fire over and over again. And Taurus kind of steps in and says, just fly, just fly.
So it's so interesting because like what I'm hearing out of the two is like finding that balance between not spiritual bypassing, but not also like being in the depths at all times. Do you think that's kind of correct, is like figuring out that fine line?
I think that's correct, because, yeah, you want to pay attention to things, and we want to transform, and we want to acknowledge places within us that need transformation and need attention, and we want to reveal shadows. And I'm a big proponent of shadow work, but I also think that there's times when we need to break from that, and we need to sort of accept who we are right now and enjoy life in this present moment. And Taurus really brings us into the present moment, the very just simple things.
I love that. A, that's really beautiful. And B, because that's sort of the placement at the moment, like talking about the eclipses, etc., how collectively will we be feeling? Obviously, everybody's chart will be so different, how it's, you know, relating, but just as a general, collectively this year, what are the themes we'll see with that?
Well, I think, healing is a huge topic right now collectively. And, I think that what happens with the nodes is the lower vibrations of the South Node are really, really highlighted in the world. And we have a chance to kind of see those things. So we'll see how people who haven't done the work on themselves, how they're projecting or how they're causing drama or chaos around them because they haven't done the work on themselves. So that will be spotlighted. And we will choose, as the collective, to go, okay, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. But we also want to step away from trauma. We want to step away from re-traumatizing ourselves from everything that's happened in the past 2 years. And we want to heal through moments that just bring us pure joy, like connecting with nature. And there is a huge emphasis on connecting with the earth right now through many, many portals, actually, in the sky, not just the North Node in Taurus, but also Uranus in Taurus has been urging us to really connect with the earth. And Uranus has been really shaking things up and will continue to shake things up until 2026. And that will really restructure our relationship with the earth. And so we're healing from the earth, and we're also restructuring our relationship with the earth. So the opportunity right now is to connect with nature for some healing that we really, really need, and to step away from trauma, and to recognize that we have gone through collective trauma over the past 2 years, and to really make an effort to not project that trauma onto others, and to realize it within ourselves, but then also take measures to heal it through connecting with the earth and connecting with nature. And then in that, really recognize the opportunity that we have to restructure our relationship with the earth and her resources.
Love that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hearing the generalization, and inside I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. This is it's so time and needed and valid. What about this Jupiter and Pisces most of the year? What does that mean? We keep hearing about that. Like, I keep seeing astrologers posting about that. What do we have to look forward to?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're right now, Jupiter will be in Pisces until May 10th when it will enter Aries.
Yay.
And yeah, it's great for you. It's really, I was actually just writing the March horoscopes for Aries. I send them out via email to people on the email list. We have the birthdays. And I was like, yeah, March is going to be great for the Aries people. And just the next couple of months. But in any event, the Jupiter in Pisces, it's a very beneficial transit. Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. And Jupiter just expands everything. And so really expanding our spirituality, which is governed by Pisces, but also bringing in an element of hope. And so I think that there's a lot of hope happening right now. And we kind of felt this way. Jupiter made a debut in Pisces last year at the beginning of the summer, and then it went retrograde and went back into Aquarius. And if you recall, that was sort of when people took their first exhales, with dealing with this pandemic, and where we kind of felt like, okay, like the end is sort of in sight. And I think now we're really sort of feeling that, and that's ushered in by Jupiter and Pisces, where it's like, okay, like things might go back to normal.
Completely.
Things are just feeling really hopeful in that front. And so on a collective level, the Jupiter in Pisces is bringing in that element of hope. And then on a personal level, it really is giving us an opportunity to expand spiritually, to ask ourselves, anytime Jupiter is involved, we are asking ourselves, what is our potential here? Where are we selling ourselves short? Where can we be reaching for these higher visions? And then Pisces, brings in the higher visions. Pisces is our intuition. It's our interconnectedness to all universal knowledge. And so with Jupiter and Pisces on a personal level, we can really ask ourselves like, okay, how can we connect more deeply to our intuition? How can we expand into our universal wisdom and really, use it for growth, use it for expansion, and use it ultimately to bring more hope into the world?
Something I think about with all this, because a lot of things you just touched on, I think are really relevant to this community in general, especially the last bit. When it comes to your chart and everybody, when they're tuning into their own chart, what do you think is the most pertinent to look at in your relationship with manifestation? And I'll even go a little bit more specific with our process of neural manifestation, which is deeply steeped in unblocking subconscious loops that might be limiting you, expanding to show what's possible, and then taking aligned action to connect with that. Just hearing about those three aspects, and to manifest in neural manifestation, the trifecta has to be in motion at the same time. What would you think are the most important parts of your chart or aspects of your chart that matter when I say that?
I mean, I would look at Jupiter because Jupiter does show expansion, potential, how we relate to abundance in all forms. It's, traditionally the planet of luck, but it's so much more than that. And where Jupiter falls in your chart, that is the place to say, okay, am I reaching for my potential, and how may I not be stepping into it? And then I would also look at the second house, which the second house traditionally rules like possessions and abundance, but it also really works with self-worth. And I think when we're manifesting anything, self-worth really comes into play. And, if we set intentions and we don't feel worthy of those intentions on a subconscious level, then we're not going to manifest them. So I think really looking at issues around self-worth, which can be found in the second house, can also be found in the sixth house, which the sixth house is the house of service. But it really relates to if we feel worthy in giving our gifts to the world. And so both the second and the sixth house are dealing with our self-worth. And so I would look at if there are any planets in those houses, what astrological sign is governing those houses, are any planets in those houses making aspects with anything else that would be creating a charge or some other relationship or energy dynamic that would be affecting self-worth in any ways. And then, yes, also really looking at Jupiter. And again, where is Jupiter falling in your chart? Sign, house, is it making any aspects? Is it opposing Neptune? So it's going to block your visions in any way. How is it working with Mars? When you say action, I think of Mars. Mars is the planet that inspires action and helps us take action. So how are Jupiter and Mars working in your chart? Are they in a beneficial aspect? Are they in no aspect? Are they in an aspect that you need to sort of break through, like a square?
Yeah, I'm tracking along on my chart as you're talking. I'm like, yeah, Virgo second house, got it. Like I'm in real time watching as you say this, with my limited knowledge. So that's really keen. Something that came to mind as you were talking was something that I can see trip people up a lot, especially when they get into manifestation work, is ego. And I'm very, very liberal in the sense of ego, because I believe as material beings in a material space, it's okay to want material things. However, like this process in neural manifestation is about really aligning with your authentic, worthy self. And I love that you hit on the worth piece, because I completely agree. If you don't subconsciously feel worthy, there's just no way to connect with what you want. However, what about the person that may be manifesting out of shadow programming of what society has told them that they should want, should have to be loved, etc.? Where do you look there to determine this stuff may not be mine? Or maybe even a better question is where do you look to really, really find your authentic wants and needs and get in touch with those to take maybe some of that layer of societal, familial, peer programming, media, etc., to really hear this is what my soul wants and needs?
Yeah, I usually look at Aquarius in a chart and see, okay, what house is that governed? Are there any planets in Aquarius? This is something I talk a lot about anytime we're dealing with Aquarius season, the full moon in Leo, which happens in Aquarius season, also Leo season, and then the Aquarius full moon as well. And, the workbooks during those times are all about this, because Leo and Aquarius really represent this dynamic between ego and heart and higher self, which is really interesting. And it touches on exactly what you're talking about. So with Aquarius, we're looking at, what do I really want, and how can I break free and through anything that was taught to me through society? Because we're all conditioned. We grow up in this society. We grow up with the collective consciousness. We understand concepts before we consciously can even understand the words when we're growing up. And so, we have these layers on us. And anytime the sun is in Aquarius, the moon's in Aquarius, it's a time to really look at, what are you carrying that's not yours? What are you doing? What are you trying to manifest? What are you trying to create in your life that's not really yours, that's been placed upon you from society? And I see this a lot with people, in their 20s, who think that they want to get married and get a house and, are checking off all those boxes. And then lo and behold, Saturn return hits them and they're like, wait, I don't want any of that. Or I do want that.
Totally.
But, I think it is really important to understand, if you are looking at your chart, what house is governed by Aquarius? Are there planets there? And then also looking at Uranus, because Uranus really does help us find our uniqueness and our own genius, and how to step into our power and do it in a way that doesn't disregard others. Because, I try to emphasize that with Aquarius. It's not that you're just saying, okay, this is me and I don't care how it affects other people. It's very much the opposite. You're saying, okay, this is me, and by me being me, I'm contributing to the collective. And even if that means I don't agree with the collective or the status quo, I'm contributing to evolving it forward. And so there's very much a higher vibration that goes with it. when we're dealing with ego, that's when we get into that trap of like, well, this is me and I don't care how it affects others because this is me. We don't want to get into that pattern. We really want to feel into our authentic truth. And if it does go against society, it's like, okay, well, how does this evolve us forward as a collective into a higher vibration for everybody?
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the Pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode. Another one that I have for you while we're on this trajectory, I love that you touched on that, right? I have a brother right now who's 23, and it feels like he's running in circles all the time because of his conditioning and trauma, where it's just, I have to figure out what I can do, what I love, so I can be successful to be loved, is how I see it playing out. We were at, our river in our hometown a week ago, and I was like, you have nothing holding you back right now whatsoever. You have a job that you can work remotely. You do work remotely with. Like, sell everything, live at my house up there for a month, sell everything and go travel the world and work remote. Like, find yourself. Obviously, this is just me putting that on him, but I was like, your taste buds are changing until 25. When your Saturn return hits you, and all this stuff that you thought you had to have in stone, to be figured out, is going to tremendously upheave a little. What would you say to that person? And I think we have a lot in our society, certainly so in this demographic that's tuning in, even post Saturn return, but especially pre 27 to 29, that is just feeling like they're spinning their wheels. They're not successful yet. They don't have all of the things, and they're certainly turning to a brand and wanting to figure out and find all of the things to essentially find worth and happiness. What do you have to say to that, and especially pertaining to astrology?
Well, I think that everybody sort of approaches their 20s differently. As a general rule of thumb, I always tell people not to get married before 27.
Awesome. I also say, don't waste your money on college unless you've done it. But I definitely, that's really, really Aquarian advice right there. Let me just say.
Yeah. But I think the 20s is a time to experiment and try different things. And if you're dealing, and if you do want to experiment with different careers, we're looking at 10th house, we're looking at Capricorn placements here, if anything's in Capricorn or which house Capricorn governs. So if you need a little bit of guidance per your chart, where should I experiment? You can look at those things and sort of look at okay, what sign is governing my 10th house? Which house is Capricorn governing? And, maybe doing some experimentation, some learning, taking some courses in those areas, just thinking about different ways those energies can manifest in your life. Because the 20s to me is a time for experimentation where you don't have anything holding you back, like kids or, probably a mortgage or things like that. And so you really can experiment. And then, as you go through the Saturn return in the later 20s, making some commitments then and making some decisions then, but taking all that you've learned through your experimentation. But as far as chart guidance, 10th house, the house ruled by Capricorn, just seeing, because houses represent areas of our life, right? So we really can use those when we're like, okay, what do I want to try? What do I want to try this week? Or what course do I want to take? Or, maybe you do want to take an online course or a college course, or you do want to travel the world. Or, as Capricorn governing your 9th house of travel, it's like, okay, you should definitely travel and see if that can somehow feed into your career, those types of things. Capricorn governing your 7th house of partnerships. Like maybe you want to experiment with a partner, or maybe you want to try different things, different projects that include partners or partnerships in some way. And so really sort of taking that approach for your experimentation.
So if I'm looking, for instance, let me track and not that mine will be the same as everybody else, but just kind of showing somebody how they can tune into this a little bit. So I think at 27, like everyone, to 29, I had my crumble in career, and it was like I had been doing all the wrong things and chasing ego. And by 28, I knew what I wanted to do, and it was moving into the holistic space. By 30, I actually was forced into doing what I'm doing now. It was like all my resources were taken away. The universe kept communicating to me in meditation. It's like, you have a thing, you have to teach to do it, even though I was really reluctant. And it was ultimately the thing that brought me everything I had ever wanted. So looking at my 10th house in Taurus, how, if I'm just looking at that, could I sort of had some preemptive intuition to be like, oh, my 10th house in Taurus, maybe I should have tried X, Y, and Z, or approached, career with a certain flair. Explain that to me a little.
So, that would be, okay, Taurus, there's healing there. There's an element of healing. So how can you experiment with different healing modalities in the realm of your career? How can you experiment with holistic approaches? Nature, right? We're dealing with Taurus again. So we're dealing with nature, connection with the earth. So, I might not look at your chart and go, okay, healing, go to med school.
Yeah.
I might go like, okay, healing, go to like Costa Rica and, learn from like a medicine person for a while, or learn about natural herbs, or, experiment there kind of thing. So that type of thing, and then also looking at Capricorn, where Capricorn fell in your chart as well. But, because you have that North Node, I'm like piecing together your chart in my head. You've got this like North Node. I would definitely say that you would be resistant to whatever career found you at first. Because
wow.
Your North Node, you resist. And then your North Node happens to be in Taurus, 10th house. So I would say, hey, 25-year-old Lacy, like, what are you resisting right now? Like, what's calling you and you're resisting? And, how can we work with helping you embrace that resistance and seeing what's there? But then also just really pointing you towards this connection with nature, connection with healing through nature, those types of things, and all the different ways you could experiment with that, because that's a really broad area.
And even demonstrating your 10th house, because you come from such like a strong academic sort of medical background as well, or research background and science background into what you're doing now. How did that look and play out in your chart?
I mean, my 10th house is Leo. So my 10th house is supercharged. I have Leo there, I have Mercury there, I have Venus there, I have Jupiter there, and they're all in Leo. And so for me, it was about experimenting with different ways of being a leader, whether that was like a leader in the research space or a leader in the yoga space, or just different forms of leadership, and how to not allow my ego to get involved, because with Leo does come ego. And so how to really find my authentic voice, and experimenting with different platforms that I could give my authentic voice to, and really show up and be a leader and challenge myself to be that leader.
Wow, that's so interesting, because even, as you're talking about like all of this, I'm learning from you. And P.S., everybody, we're definitely going to be tuning and talking about how you have a great natal chart online course. And this is why. But it's so fascinating because in real time, as you're telling me that, if I'm tuning into each of the planets that are in my 10th house, it's Neptune, Uranus, and Moon, two of which are Capricorn. So it's really fascinating.
Yeah. And Capricorn, anytime Capricorn touches in the 10th house, it's like there's a strong desire to be successful and to find your purpose and to go for it and to work and to sometimes overwork. So, also looking at that as well.
Man, that's all great. Well, tell us this wasn't even a plug for your course, but tell us about it a bit because there's much to be learned and had from it.
Yeah, so we just launched that. It's just 3 videos on your natal chart and how to understand it. The first video, that's the longest one. That's on the signs. And that goes into, higher vibrations, lower vibrations of all the signs, because we all have all the signs within us. A lot of people think they're just their sun sign, or, they learn about their moon rising and they think they have those energies, but you have every astrological energy within you. So it's important to understand all of them, and they will be activated at different times depending on the collective astrology and what's happening currently. And so the first part is really about, all the signs. The second part is about the planets, what each planet means, what part of your personality it governs, how to work with it in your chart, putting some of those pieces together of planet and signs, and then looking at the houses. And I find the houses are what confuse people the most, but are really important when understanding your natal chart. Your natal chart is 3 parts: signs, planets, houses, and everything happens in your houses. These are the areas of your life. And so understanding your houses, and that's when you start to understand how all the signs affect you and how all the energies of each of the zodiac signs affect you, because each one will govern or touch on a house somewhere in your chart. And it's all important. Every degree of your chart is important. Some astrologers will say if a sign isn't on the cusp of a house, it's not that important in your chart. I believe that every degree of your chart is important because it's all touched upon as the sun moves through the sky and all the planets move through the sky. They're touching on certain degrees of your chart, and you'll feel it in the areas governed by your houses. So houses become really important, especially when dealing with the collective or current astrology. So if we're looking at the moon's at 26 degrees Virgo, you can say, okay, let me look and see on my astrological chart, where does 26 degrees Virgo fall? What house is that in? So you look at, the house where that Virgo touches for you, and you find 26 degrees, which will be the end of Virgo, right before Libra takes over. And you say, okay, that house, that area is where I'm going to feel the moon in Virgo the most. That's where to focus. If I'm doing work on myself or I'm setting intentions, that's the area of my life governed by that house to really focus on. And so houses become very important, both when dealing with your natal chart, understanding your personality, and also dealing with the current astrology.
I think it's great. It also sounds really approachable. I've seen quite a few different online astrological courses, and this one actually sounds digestible and not too overwhelming. I even love that you started, because people, they start to talk about aspects and stuff, and it can get really, if it's not your gift, I'll say, it can get really, really overwhelming. Whereas I know people who can just read something once with astrology and it's a channel for them after that point. So I like how you're saying yours is structured. Actually feels very digestible.
Yeah, I try to make it very, just breaking it down, but also if people do know, are more advanced, then they get something out of it too. But, if people are just beginning to learn about their chart, it can be overwhelming. I kind of forget sometimes, I look at a chart and I just read it. You have to know a bit about astrology to even know what the symbols mean alone. Mm-hmm. And it's when we're staring at charts for so many years, you kind of forget that charts it's a language. And then the aspects, that's advanced in my opinion, is really understanding aspects. And there's a lot of information, understanding of aspects. And, every week I look at my chart, laid upon the current chart, and look at the aspects that my natal chart make with the current astrology and current placements. But that's, I'm not going to teach a course on that right off the bat.
Yeah. That's the build upon. Sure. No, I get that. Cause that's just hey, whoa, it's so much. So yeah. I love that. Okay, so everybody here listening who's a huge fan of you will kick me if I don't obviously ask, or I round out this episode with a couple of questions about 2022. We've hit on, the eclipses, which are great. What's the overall theme of the year?
I mean, I think the overall theme of the year is healing, brought in by the nodes entered Taurus and Scorpio, mid-January, and that really ushered in this theme of healing. And, with the Jupiter and Pisces, it's a very healing aspect. There's a lot of hope there as well. And then, as Jupiter makes its way into Aries, it sort of takes on a different tone where it's expanding, our focus on ourself, and where we can say, okay, how do I want to align with my soul's mission? Like, what do I need to get back on track on? What do I think I may have missed or forgotten about the last couple of years? Like, how can I sort of refocus my energy and get clear on my life's path now that sort of some other things have subsided around me? And so, really kind of healing, bringing focus back on moving forward with confidence. And then, the eclipses are coming in Taurus and Scorpio. We have a lovely total lunar eclipse in Scorpio in mid-May. And so those are really offering some work to work on our own lunar nodes, our own nodal path and karmic path, and through the lens of Taurus and Scorpio, but really to kind of step into this healing and this connection with nature. And, there is so much with healing nature that's coming up right now. Restructuring our resources with the earth is coming up right now. And then also, Saturn is in Aquarius. That happened last year and will continue this year. So it's a similar energy, but it's really asking us to look at the greater collective and make choices that help everybody in the world. And so there's an emphasis on responsibility to everyone around us, no matter where they are, and understanding how our own frequency really affects the planet's frequency. And so taking sort of responsibility for raising our own vibration to really help others. And so, working with all of that, we of course have our Mercury retrogrades that we have every year. We have 4 this year because we have one at the very end.
I actually really prospered during the retrograde itself. It's the shadow phases that eat me alive every time.
Yeah. Were you born during a retrograde?
That's a good question. I actually don't know how to even find that out if I was.
Yeah, it would say in your chart.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to look at your chart to find that. But yeah, and then we have a Mars retrograde also happening. I'm not the biggest fan. This is later in the year. I'm not the biggest fan of Mars retrograde, to be honest. It's probably like I rarely say that because I try and find the high sides of everything and the opportunities for evolution. Mars retrograde can just feel a little sticky. It starts October 30th. It'll last until January 18th, and it happens in Gemini. Yeah, and we'll be in Scorpio, so we'll be in an eclipse season. We have 2 eclipse seasons a year when the eclipses happen. Mars retrograde can just bring up a lot of frustrations, a lot of anger, I was thinking like road rage. I think of Mars retrograde.
Don't need more of that in LA.
Yeah. And so, but it really is this opportunity for people to say, okay, I'm frustrated. You want to look inward during Mars retrograde. If you are feeling restless, if you are feeling impatient, go, okay, why? Why am I feeling that way? Am I not aligning with my soul's mission? Do I not feel that I'm on my path? Am I not excited about my life? Am I not looking forward to the day ahead? What am I dreading? And making changes and aligning with that action of Mars to make change in your life. But it can be just very sticky because it kind of feels like the whole world is like on edge during Mars retrograde. And it can like lead to some altercations, in both in nature and in the world. And so it just needs to be approached with a little caution.
So hide under your bed for that time and don't leave, or just like go into your meditation chamber and stay the whole time. But I love that.
Yeah, avoid the 405 if you can.
Completely. Wow. Okay. That's a good one to know about.
But, I think overall, Like there's not a ton happening astrologically this year, but there is this emphasis on healing, and there is this spotlight on Taurus. There's this spotlight on connection with the earth, and there is going to be a spotlight on restructuring our connection with resources and thinking about the planet. I think everybody's always thinking about the planet, and well, most people, but I think it's going to be emphasized this year. How are we utilizing the planet's resources? What does need to be restructured? And there could be things that happen to kind of force change quickly and efficiently for Mother Nature's best, to be honest.
This is a bit lofty and could seem, a bit loaded, but I'm sure there's a really wonderful way to approach it with finesse. It seems like so many of those things have been politicized, and we've certainly seen that heightened in the last 2 years, looking at the planet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a place in the chart, in the stars, where we can start to see things universally and zoom out of falling into what I would say are the pitfalls and the traps of everything being so politicized, and just kind of coming together and seeing things with a universal lens a little bit? In astrology, where do we see that?
I mean, I think we're seeing that right now in the current astrology with Uranus and Taurus. And we're also seeing it with Saturn and Aquarius. And so those two forces, they're working together, but they're working together through some tension. So
but mirrors perfectly.
Yeah. And that's kind of what it feels like. Like every time I start to see things happen in the world, like I'll sort of like zoom out, out of the fear and out of the anxiety that the headlines bring. I'm like, oh, right, Saturn and Aquarius, Uranus and Taurus. And that's kind of like the bigger picture, like Saturn and Aquarius, collective responsibilities, changing governments, governing laws, governing bodies, rules, regulations, all of these things so that the collective can evolve forward into a new space. And then Uranus and Taurus, Uranus really shakes things up, and it innovates, and it innovates sometimes through, I don't want to say destruction, but kind of like sticking your finger in an electric socket. It's shocking. Like Uranus is shocking, and it really breaks things up. It's not subtle. It's not subtle. And so Uranus and Taurus is like, hey. And then, eventually just screams at us, okay, we need to innovate to help the planet in some way. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be politicized in any way. I think it's just taking that broader view anytime anything happens where it's like, okay, this is a wake-up call. Like these are wake-up calls, and things they need to change, and they're going to change. Uranus and Taurus is like, we don't really have a choice. Things are going to change, and it's just a matter of how that evolves and how much resistance there is to it. And that will sort of govern how easy the change is versus not so easy. And, I began seeing this when Uranus first entered Taurus, and it's just, and it is an evolution forward. So it's not just like returning to nature, like we're all going to go live off the grid type thing. Uranus is forward thinking. So we're looking at technology here just as much as anything else. So it's like, how can our technology help us? How can we invent new ways that will help the earth? How can we, look at renewable resources in a different way and create technology that like helps bring them to everybody? So it's not about like, everybody just move off the grid and grow your own fruit and food. And that's great. And I love that idea. Sometimes I think about doing that myself. I think it's a wonderful plan. But Uranus is much more about, okay, like how do we use technology to evolve forward and innovate?
That's really great. And I think that was a really, really cool way to approach it. And it's beautiful to know that it's kind of in the stars. It's happening in real time. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's happening in real time. And people are like, they're always asking me like, what are the stars saying? I'm like, Saturn, Aquarius, Uranus, and Taurus. Just learn about them and learn about what they're bringing to us right now. And you start to sort of understand, everything happening from the headlines to, what's happening in your own town kind of thing.
Well, I'm so grateful to have you back, Jill. Everyone is as well. It was one of the most popular episodes last year, as you were so laborious in it. Anybody who's interested, please go listen to that episode because you went through the high vibration and how the shadow and low vibration could be showing up in every sign. And by the end of it, I wanted to take a nap for you. I felt so bad. So it's really something to be cherished. And we're so grateful for this conversation again. What do you have new that's going on that we should know about? You mentioned the course. Is there anything else that we should know about outside of the beautiful monthly art and books that you create for everybody?
We're moving a lot of our offerings to digital offerings, which is great. So I'm going to be putting out some yoga videos. We're going to be expanding on our lunar cycle courses, which we debuted back in Scorpio, where, we took something like shadow work, which is a very Scorpio topic, and I paired it with the transits each day and, said, okay, this is what's happening in the moon and the current astrology, and this is how you can use that energy to work on your shadows. And so we'll be expanding on lunar cycle courses in these are digital offerings. So again, even at Spirit Daughter, we're looking at ways that we can sort of innovate and bring more digital offerings to people that don't rely on the Earth's resources necessarily to get them things. So that's what we have sort of in the pipeline over the next couple of months.
Awesome. And where can we find you, as if nobody here will know?
SpiritDaughter.com is the website, and Spirit Daughter is the Instagram.
Thank you so much, Jill.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ+ community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.